make it look acceptable. Done. Now for the good stuff. Make the form work. Does that look painful? Sorry. Well, gosh, there are a lot of steps to making that form work. So if that seems overwhelming, let's just break it the heck down. If we want the stuff we type in here to show up over here, that involves a couple of major steps. One, this thing needs to get filled up with data. We need to have that data, the list of notes, live somewhere and dynamically render inside that list. Part one. Part two, we need to find a way of updating that data with what we have in the form. So these two components, note list and note form, they're both being rendered in main, right? Side by side. They can't talk directly to each other. Because the only way to get data into a component from the outside is how? Even that is like within the same component, right? If we need to get something into one component from another, yeah, Kyle. Props, right? Props are how we get data into a component from outside. And, well, we can't send props from here to here. Main can send props down to either one of them. But they can't talk directly to each other. But that's okay, they don't need to. Let's not think of it this way. Let's not think of typing into the form and adding it over here. We type into the form and we add it to a piece of data. Now, independently of that process, anything that happens to be in that piece of data is going to get rendered here. So we no longer need to attach those two processes. This thing is just going to render out the data, whatever the data is. How the data gets updated is none of its business. The form's job is to get the data in there. But what happens to it once it's there is completely independent of that. It could go in this list, it could go anywhere. We get the data in there and then we don't even worry about how that affects the rest of the page. So that's a piece of data that we need to manage, that we need to be able to make changes to, which means in the React world, it's what kind of thing? Props are how we pass data from one component to another. But how do we store data in a component that we might need to tie to something else internally? State, right? So we tried to kind of emulate that in Dynoplasty by having our this.dynos array. Same idea. Put stuff in there and then render that. So the big question is, which of these components needs to have that state? Keeping in mind, note list is going to need to be able to print whatever that data is, right? So it can't go in note form because then it couldn't get back to note list, right? So it has to be at least as high up as main because it needs to be able to share it with both of those. Where did you put it, people who did it? Main? Anybody not put it in main? Anybody put it in app? Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in app. So main was a perfectly reasonable choice for the homework. I just have a feeling that maybe one of these days it'll need to be higher up than that. I'm not certain. I'm not being entirely coy, like, haha, I know it's coming, because we're doing this a little bit on the fly. But I have a feeling that it's going to need to be up at the very top level. So that's what I'm going to do. Plus, that gives us an opportunity of showing how you pass it further down the chain. So I'm going to do it on app. But it was a good choice for your homework to put it on main. Maybe that was even the best choice.